I'm Galvin.
And I'm Author Function.
And this is the Secret Boss Podcast, where we talk about the best auteurs in gaming, whether they deserve that title or not. And today we are talking about npckc, who is just the most freaking heckin' most wholesome little game developer out there. The most wholesome, no bummers, no bummers allowed, 100% wholesome heckin' chungus, the 100% freaking... Okay, let's stop. So,
okay, you told me that you had the worst introduction of all time for this episode, and I was not expecting that. I did not. Okay. Let's
you
move on. I don't want to.
You should have. I think I said it last episode while introducing them too. People have done things over time to the word wholesome that are not allowed by the Geneva Convention in the gaming industry. And we have to talk about this because it's like, I may not have even played npckc's games, who I like a lot. And I really like these games a lot. I wouldn't have even played these games if there had just been like one more wholesome direct. I would have like renounced all wholesome games and like put it down forever and put it away. The things people are doing in those avenues are so weird and exploitative. Anyways, npckc have made games that you could consider wholesome if you were going to use a dictionary definition of the word and not what people have done to it over years. Yeah, they are making games on itch.io. This is basically the first itch.io developer we're covering, or developer who primarily functions on itch.io, which is kind of horrible for a podcast that covers video game auteurs. You'd think they would want to go after that more, but anyways, npckc, born in Hong Kong, raised in Canada, now living in Japan, a triple threat. They know Cantonese, they learned English while growing up, and they studied Japanese in Japan. They were mainly a translator for a game company. They got signed onto that, but as their story goes, they wanted to make video games for game jams after learning about itch.io and Bitsy, which is a very easy to use game engine. So they started doing that. Over time, one of their games blew up, and now they do it full time as of, I think, 2023, which is really recent, but they've been doing it for like 7 years now, on and off, which is wonderful. That's exactly what the kind of stuff Itch is for, you know, stuff you put on when you're doing stuff as a side gig, or if you're going for it as a full job. That's the kind of stuff that platform is made for. And how would you describe their style, you think, if you had to describe the style?
I mean, they are very wholesome games, I would say, but a lot of these games are very queer-focused games. This is a queer developer making a lot of queer games, outright saying so in a lot of their work and interviews. And these games are wholesome in the way that you often see in a lot of queer spaces online, where they are sort of promoting a way of understanding yourself and giving a level of understanding and care and comfort to an area where there is often a lot of strife and a lot of outright attacks. So these kind of wholesome games are like really important for queer communities and having wholesome content in general, because it allows people to sort of think about themselves in a way that is free from a lot of the sort of persecution that they generally see in societies. But I think both of us, I don't want to generalize, but we are also people that aren't super in tune to wholesome media in general. I think that we enjoy a lot of, say, more abrasive, sort of edgy stuff, to be honest, a lot of the time. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Galvin.
Yeah, no, you're right. We're like into a lot edgier media. Like I watch Death Note. I listen to My Chemical Romance. I listen to 21 Pilots, like really dark stuff, you know, stuff that npckc wouldn't be able to handle. So I would say, you know, we're doing that.
Just because someone makes a lot of wholesome media doesn't mean that they can't handle other stuff.
What do you mean? What do you mean? An artist's work obviously reflects the artist. That's totally what auteurism means. You know, you watch a movie and you intuit the entire author's personality based off of that, and you assume that you know them. You know, that's there you go. We solved it.
Like Miyazaki, his movies, the wholesome movies. Yeah, he's just like a really sweet, nice guy who has no problems with anyone.
We're kidding. In case it's not clear, we're kidding. We're joking. I think it's interesting, the one influence they cite. They cite a lot of different influences in different interviews, but the one they cite the most is Ace Attorney, which is, if you don't know, a visual novel series. Came out originally in Japan, came out in America, and in general, they're just like, they're murder mysteries, but they're kind of like very peppy, would you say? Like very upbeat and generally fun, without being like overbearing. And I feel like that over time, that's developed its own queer community that's been like generally positive and not negative, I guess. It doesn't really go into like darker territory. Maybe this is a huge generalization, but I don't know. I felt like I connected a lot with how Ace Attorney connected to Western audiences and how npckc is connected to Western audiences. What do you think?
Interesting. When I read a visual novel writer saying that they're influenced by Ace Attorney, from what I get from that is that they played Ace Attorney, like, wow, visual novels are great. And then they got into visual novels. So I guess I'm reading that very differently than you are.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the cat's out of the bag now. I feel like you didn't get as much out of npckc as I did. I would like to push forward a case that npckc, while they are in some ways wholesome, they definitely are comfy and meant to like alleviate people's stresses about things. They're not meant to be like super stressful about things. I wouldn't say they're escapist though. That's the thing. I feel like these games, they don't pull punches in the way that other games that are wholesome in like possibly even toxic, if not just badly written ways, they do. I feel like there's a lot here in npckc's work about specifically about like what friends owe to each other, about social interactions, about how to help other people and without crossing people's boundaries. There's a lot of different stuff in those games that aren't necessarily stressful or extremely like that would need to seriously be put on a content warning, like blared for everybody to see, but they are like realistic. They do deal with realistic problems. And I think they have a really good way of keeping that tone, but they're
I
also not for
completely agree
everybody.
with that. Don't think that I disagree with that. I think that these games are really valuable. I think a lot of wholesome media is escapist, as you say, but these games sort of give an opportunity to understand a new way of navigating social situations and figuring out, like, okay, if I'm in this place with a marginalized person, how am I going to go about this? I find that very valuable, but on a personal level, I dislike that because
Because
I
you
don't know,
dislike
it feels.
marginalized people, right? You hate marginalized people.
Oh
That's
yeah,
why
because I hate them so much.
the
No,
truth
this is
revealed.
no. I find these kind of difficult for myself to connect with, because well, first off, I love drama. When I had Christine Love to talk about last time, I was like, okay, I love messy queer art, and
I think what it comes down to, I think mainly is that you and me, I feel like over the time as we've watched movies together and like talked about media together, I feel like deep down you and me, we both like looking at trash fires, like content wise.
oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's something wrong. We both like, I really love the movie Crank and I showed it to you without any hesitation. Everybody listening to this episode, the NPCKC episode, everyone go watch Crank right now.
Yeah,
Great
very
movie.
similar work there.
Um, but yeah, I feel like, yeah, we're just more drawn to messy art in general. And I get this is not one of those, but I do feel like this is doing a lot of things that other wholesome works of art don't. Let's just get into it. Let's get into their most popular work, which is A Year of Springs, which is, I guess, technically 3 games, but I guess if there's one game that they're really popular for individually, it would be One Night Hot Springs, which is the first game in the trilogy. But it's nowadays packaged as A Year of Springs, the trilogy of games. What is A Year of Springs about? Can you describe it to us?
Well, A Year of Springs is following the stories of 3 different young women in Japan, most of them relating to springs or sort of spas in general. And each of these 3 stories focuses on a different woman and sort of navigating their friendships and their relationships. And it's sort of a.
It varies, yeah, it definitely varies
Yeah.
from between all 3 games, the subject matter. I would say, though, I guess let's take it one game at a time. So One Night Hot Springs was NPC Casey's blow-up game, I guess, or blowout game? What's it? Breakout game.
Blow
Sorry,
up.
I
Oh,
forgot.
okay, whatever. Same thing. People understand.
Wait, breakout game doesn't make sense either because breakout is an actual game. So we got to come up with a new term for that.
It was their Tetris game.
Yeah, it was their Tetris. One Night Hot Springs was their Tetris game. In that it was very popular, while their previous games were only kind of popular, but they got a lot of attention after that. It's about a trans woman named Haru, I think is her name. It's been a while since I played it. It's been like a month. Haru, who's a trans woman who is going to a bathhouse, and she's worried about the Japanese bathhouse's standards against trans women, I guess. Yeah, I think that's one way to put it. Japanese bathhouses, or Japan in general, have been less progressive than the Western world's policies when it comes to LGBTQ rights. Although
I mean, in the Western world, things aren't super great. I think a lot of these problems would persist.
I'm saying by comparison, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, Haru's worried. Her other friends are trying to reassure her, and you basically control Haru as she decides what she thinks would be best, in quotes, for the situation. This was inspired by something that was actually real, and it's really disappointing to hear. There's a news story in Japan about a trans woman arrested for going into a women's bathhouse, and there was a bunch of negative public backlash around it. So npckc kind of made this game as a response to that, to imagine a world that was, in their words, a little bit kinder. Yeah, this is a game that deals with a lot of heavy stuff, but doesn't deal with it in like an alarming way, which is what I think npckc does best. It is definitely not a wholesome game. You can't describe this. No one is going to put this on and be like, this is comfy, I guess. I guess it depends on how you define wholesome. It does have generally nice endings. Like nothing gets like extremely violent or hateful. It never goes there. But it deals with issues in a way that's comforting. I imagine would be comforting to people while addressing all the different attitudes you could take towards something like this. Would you say that's fair?
I disagree a little bit. I do think this is kind of a comfy game because this game is about these three different friends, and you might imagine that these friends are going to have like a little bit of conflict. They're going to be struggling with their own sort of things. But in this game, these friends really do care about each other, and while there are some like microaggressions and stuff, they're really trying their best to understand each other and help each other out, even though they may be ignorant in some things. So while there are like a lot of difficulties that these characters have in trying to relate to each other, there is this feeling that they are ultimately there for each other and providing for each other and giving each other a space to learn and grow and to be their best selves. So I think it's comfy in a relational way, but it's still dealing with a lot of heavier topics.
Yeah, and I do want to take back something I said earlier. I think I said none of the endings end in especially bad ways. They don't, but there are still in some ways bad endings. Literally, one of the endings is called bad ending. I would say that the friends are all, yeah, they're all friendly with each other. They all genuinely love each other, but I don't think the conflict was within the friends. The conflict is between Haru and the potentially hostile bathhouse, which doesn't turn
Right.
out to be hostile. The bad ending comes when you basically, who basically lets her self-loathing take over, and she doesn't do anything. She doesn't especially have high self-esteem of herself, as you kind of see throughout the trilogy and in this game as well. And I feel, and if you let her basically stay in and not do anything, and basically just stay away from other people as much as possible, you basically have an extremely awkward and pretty sad version of a bathhouse experience. I guess that's why I wouldn't call it comfy, because you still have the opportunity to be like, to walk out like really bummed. I feel like other comfy games wouldn't go for that, but maybe I'm setting the bar too low. I'm thinking about games like Valhalla. I probably pissed off so many people. I don't like Valhalla, sorry, the bartender game, but that's a completely separate story. I don't know. I do feel like there are some points that NPCKC puts in that has legitimate tragedy that really does hurt, because all the more because the world is trying to be nice to you, but it does end in sadness. And I feel like that's their best asset in some of their games.
Yeah, I think this game is really interesting because I feel like when I would expect a game about a trans person inside a bathhouse and facing a lot of these issues, I feel like there is a temptation to make the sort of correct choice to be like avoiding going out there and avoiding engaging with the bathhouse. But you are encouraged in a lot of ways to be sort of letting yourself out there and being open and trying new things in a way that I kind of didn't expect. I think that you need to be like sort of communicating with your friends and saying like, "Hey, this is what's going on." But you need to be going to the bathhouse instead of just staying home. Or those are parts that are encouraged within the game. And I kind of expected that it would be the opposite, where sort of staying inside and avoiding that stuff so you wouldn't be hurt would be the correct choice, quote unquote. But it actually really encourages like a lot of engagement, even though there is the risk of getting hurt, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, it's strange because it's a mix of two things. It's one, a world where Japanese bathhouses are generally nicer than maybe a realistic one might be. I don't know. I haven't been to a Japanese bathhouse, but imagine the world that's a lot nicer than a potentially cruel world, the one that we live in, could be. But simultaneously, it's also a story about self-loathing, where you are playing the trans woman and it's your choice to either go out or stay in. So it's weird. It's a mix of both. I don't know. There's a lot of mixing tones in this that I found very weird, and that I found was interesting. That led me to continue playing, and that leads to oh god, I keep forgetting the names of the second and third games because they all have spring in them.
I don't care. Part 2.
New leaves, new springs, and then there's the last one called Spring Leaves No Flowers, which, by the way, I want to emphasize. You said earlier that the trilogy was about hot springs. Not really, because the second and third games are more about spring the season. It's a pun. You've been tricked. It's actually not about springs and spas. They don't really go to springs and spas in
The
the second
second
and
one
third
is
one.
still about springs and spas.
Okay, but it fades away. You have to admit it fades away as time goes on. Okay, the second game I really liked. This is my favorite out of the trilogy. You play as Erica, which is an interesting character in the first one because she is supportive, but she does like misunderstand a lot of parts about trans people and ends up hurting you in the process. Again, another interesting thing, which is like, whose goal is it to? I mean, it shouldn't be the trans person's job to correct people about microaggressions or like misunderstandings. It should be the person's job to educate themselves, but also you have to like bridge the gap of communication. That's also what I was talking about when I was talking about mixing tones. It's kind of like it doesn't take one side over the other, which is I feel like not what a lot of stories would do in this situation. But anyways, you play as Erica, which is the well-meaning but kind of a blunt friend. Would you say? I think blunt is the right word. Erica wants to organize a big trip for all three of them because it's been months since the last time they met, and they want to get Haru in on something. It's for her birthday, right? It's for her birthday.
Yeah,
She
it's her
wants to do
birthday.
something for Haru's birthday. Spoilers for this game. I feel like I want to talk about spoilers. I don't really know if I could get around discussion of this game without spoilers.
Yeah, just spoil it. It's not.
It's
I
not
feel
really
like
a
this is really a
spoiler.
game you could spoil.
It is a little weird when the car comes in and kills all three of them at the end. It is weird.
Oh my god.
no, no. But this game is very interesting to me because you are playing as Erica, who is basically the most extroverted friend out of the three of them. And she wants to organize something for Haru, who they don't really know. She doesn't really know Haru that well because they just met. They only just met in the first part. They're mainly both friends through Monami. So it's interesting because Erica wants to organize something for Haru's birthday, but Haru has very low self-esteem of herself. And she's getting like sick and she doesn't want to go out with her friends because she thinks she'll be a bother. It's basically not your job as Erica, but it's your choice as Erica if you want to step across boundaries and like in some ways pester her to get her to join you for a birthday that you think that she'll enjoy, or just leave her alone, leave her to her own whims and stuff like that. And this brings up questions to me of like boundaries in friendship. I feel like this is one recurring theme that goes across their work, not just in a Year Spring, but in their other games as well, if you pay close attention. To what degree do you owe each other to be a good friend? What boundaries should you cross? The what is the polite thing to do, or what's the right thing to do, and how what's the line between that? I don't think there's very clear answers at the end of this game. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like difficulty in communication in this game. So a lot of the communication with Haru is through text, and this is can be like really frustrating to understand where she's coming from
Oh
because she
yeah.
sends a lot of like emojis or one word responses to like basically anything that you try to respond to her and ask her questions like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And she's like, I don't know," sad emoji. It's like, come on, give me more, Haru. I want to help you out. So I think there's also that theme of like opening out to your friends more alongside it. But when you try to like do something nice for her and try to get her to a spa is when like the sort of conflict within this section comes out, because as Erica is like trying to look around and trying to find a spa that will allow a trans woman in, she just can't find one. And she's like kind of stressing out and figuring out like, I want to do this really nice thing for my friend, but the system isn't allowing me to do that. So what do I do? And they find a way to like sort of navigate that problem. But there is like a conflict. Like, I want to be helping my friend, but I don't know how I can do that in this really fucked up world and everything. So, and I think it's really great to have another part with this with a cis person instead of a trans person, because the first part is like trans person sort of coming out to this spa and like wanting to come out of the shell to be accepted and everything. So she's not really experiencing any personal grief or trauma from that. Whereas if you want to make a part where it's about all the bigoted policies and how hurtful that can be, presenting that through a cis lens is actually like kind of helpful to not subject a trans character to that experience. And the part is also like um trying to shield Haru from a lot of these terrible policies as best as she can, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because the two conflicts are mixing with each other. In the first one, it was just a group of friends that are all on the same side versus a potentially hostile society, basically. In this one, the hostile society deflects damage basically onto the friends, and they have to deal with it amongst themselves. Which is, I mean, Both are realistic, but this one deals with it in a different way, which I think is very interesting. Another thing that's very interesting, there are no bad endings in this game. Did you notice that? There are no endings that are labeled actually explicitly bad. They're all labeled just like based on the last line people say to each other in that ending. Um, and I feel like
I
that's
didn't know
very
there were
interesting.
other endings in this part, to be honest.
Oh, you didn't do the other endings. Okay, I see.
No,
But
I'm a one
okay,
ending
I'll
person.
spoil it now. I'll spoil it now because I played through all the endings of, I think, of all the games. Basically, your series of choices you make in the second game are about whether or not you let Haru keep herself down, basically, because Haru doesn't want to do anything for her birthday. She keeps saying she wants to stay in. It's okay. She doesn't want to get involved and waste everybody's time, but you want to help her as a person. So there is one ending where you keep on just like talking to her and encouraging her to come out and say, it's okay, we can all celebrate your birthday. And that's, I'm assuming, the ending you got, where they have a spa together in their own home.
Yeah.
And Haru says, this is great. I'm glad we did this. In any other ending, if you make any other choice saying like, maybe we'll leave Haru to her own devices, then she ends up staying in and you don't ever get to have that spa party at the end that makes her happy. And the game just ends right there with the last line you said. Not a bad ending, but it's not the most arguably fulfilling ending. It's not what some people would call the true ending because it doesn't have that emotional catharsis. But the point is that the visual novel here doesn't make any allusions to one ending technically being any more preferable than the other. All of these are things that could happen, technically. Although technically the third game does continue on with that spa day ending. But it's like, these are all outcomes that could happen. And I don't know. It's like devastating to me, quietly devastating to me in a way, because it's like, it's not like declared as a sad ending. It's not like the end of the world or anything. There's always more opportunities to meet up later, but it is also just like a defeat in that you're letting this friend stay in. But you're also giving her the freedom to choose what she wants to do. And that brings up a lot of questions. The structure of the game in and of itself, where you have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, possibly past the player's boundaries of what's okay to keep pestering somebody for and what's okay not to keep pestering someone for to get that ending. I don't know. It brought up a lot of questions for me. So that really resonated with me. I think it's a really interesting way to structure a game, and I've never seen anything like it before.
See, I didn't get that ending because I'm just too good at social situations. I have too many friends and I'm just too good at helping people understand themselves and navigate social situations. So I couldn't see that part. So, guess that's just a you thing.
You saw all the other choices and you're like, I'm so good of a socialized person, I'm never even going to pick that. My choices reflect who I am as a person.
I mean, I feel like these were pretty easy choices to make to get the good ending.
Okay. Wasn't for me. But I guess we have different options. And the third one takes this a lot further. Well, not a lot further, but in a very different direction. Do you want to explain the third one?
Yeah, so the third one, the first two are like sort of about being trans and a lot of trans policies, but the third one is more of a sort of traditional coming out story for a aromantic asexual character. Mamami?
I think we agreed on
Manami.
Monami. If you're going to be
Manami,
wrong, we should be consistent about it. Yeah.
yeah, so Manami is like a pretty consistent character through the first two parts. She's sort of like the friend to everyone. There's not really seems to be a lot going on in her life. She seems to happily be with her boyfriend and not having very much issues with that. But the third part is her sort of realizing that she might not actually be straight, and she talks to Erica and Haru, who are dating in this part, kind of like a reveal to Manami based on the ending of the spa that she wasn't at. And yeah, this is about like her hearing the way that their relationship is going and seeing that they have desire for each other that she doesn't really have for her partner. And it's about her like sort of processing those feelings, figuring it out, and then eventually talking to her boyfriend about it. And what is interesting in this, I think, is that it's a very open-ended thing at the end. You don't know if she breaks up with her boyfriend or if they stay together, because there are some people who are aromantic or asexual or both who stay in their relationships and they still find them fulfilling, even though they might not have the same sort of sexual or romantic desires that their partner has. And I think that is interesting. This game kind of leaves that open because it wants to be like a story for a wide variety of aromantic or asexual people where people have differing experiences here, and it doesn't really take a side for her specific character so people can relate to her easier, which I think is like a really smart way to go about things in a coming out story.
Yeah, I think it's really smart. And for no reason in particular, was that the only ending you got?
Yeah.
Okay. You're just so good at understanding your own feelings that you didn't even think to pick the other options.
Was there a bad ending for this or something?
Well, I mean, I would definitely say there are worse endings, but again, they're not labeled as bad, which is very interesting. This game takes the same format as the second game in that there's one ending that you get to at the very end where she figures herself out, or she figures out her identity and decides to push forward with it. And that's the ending that takes the longest to get to after you make all the choices. And then there are a bunch of endings where you make choices along the way to kind of repress yourself or stay in, and the game just ends right there. And it doesn't say it's a bad ending; it just ends right there.
Okay, but these choices are crossed out, right?
Not all of them. No, there are choices you can make along the way that end the game prematurely.
Okay, well,
I guess you
I'm too
you
good.
missed everything. You missed like half the game, man.
I just can't lose at these games. I'm just so good.
Okay. Brag about it. Okay. But I really encourage people who are playing this game or who are interested in playing this game to go, after getting maybe the good ending, to go and play what people you could probably consider are the worst endings. Because I mean, I think everyone can agree that not figuring out your identity is worse. I think we can all agree on that. But it's interesting because it comes back to the idea of self-hatred, but it also runs to a bunch of different things about, like, are you able to tell the truth about yourself? Or are you able to trust in the faith of others? Like, for example, part of the reason Manami finds out she's asexual in the first place is because Haru talks to her and suggests, hey, maybe you are asexual or aromantic, because Manami hasn't heard of the concept before. And because Haru is more affiliated with LGBTQ plus culture, she knows more about that kind of stuff, or she knows the name to give Manami that she can look up later. And that comes down to a point of, you eventually get to a choice of, do I trust Haru, basically? Do I trust my friend to tell something about me that I don't know, I may not know about myself? And that comes to a point of, like, trusting your friends. And then there's this whole point where there's this whole scene where you take a quiz. It's kind of like, am I asexual quiz that a lot of online sites have. And you have the option of, like, it's like not even just like a lying, outright telling the truth or lying to yourself, because Monami always ends up finding a way to justify it after every time she answers the question. So there might be some things that she genuinely likes or genuinely doesn't like. We don't know, technically, because we don't know the actual truth about it. We're the ones making the choices. But what's interesting is, I don't know, the gray area, I guess, between being able to find out your identity and not being able to find out your identity. Like that quiz. If she answered like one question maybe more conservatively than she might not have, she might have gotten like a full score that said, you are not asexual or you are not aromantic. So she's basically putting down her discovery of her identity down to an online quiz. She's putting her trust in something completely online and anonymous. And maybe even just like one number off could have changed the trajectory of her life completely. So I think overall this game takes into a lot of factors about like trusting your friends, trusting yourself, and in how you're able to decide your own identity, trusting random research sources and stuff like that, and like letting blind chance and your own mind simultaneously make up the different paths you can go into in life. It's just like, I don't know, it's chaotic and really scary when you look at it from the full picture, from the full flow chart where the entire visual novel could have went. Because on the one hand, you have this one great ending that everybody obviously wants, but you have all these other options which are, I don't know, I feel like a lesser visual novel would have written them off as bad endings, or like endings that aren't canon. Like when a visual novel calls something a bad ending, it's just calling it like inferior to the true ending, or less likely to happen. You know, this didn't happen. We're pushing this aside. It's like a game over. But this doesn't do that. And I don't know, that kind of, even that one tiny little gesture is, I don't know, much more disheartening and scary than I would attribute to most cozy or comfy games.
Damn. I'm really sorry that I'm just too good at these games that I couldn't engage with it that way.
I hate you.
I really missed out. That reminds me of the time I played Dark Souls. Did you know that you can lose your souls if you die in Dark Souls? I never knew that. Wow, that's crazy.
When you saw the "You Die" screen, you're like, "What's that a reference to? I should play that game."
Oh shit, is that a new ending? I never saw that before.
What do you mean game over music? There's game over music in video games? Can you show them to me?
You spent more than 25 cents on this arcade game? Why? All right, what should we talk about next?
Okay, maybe we spent too much time on Year of Springs. It's fine though, because I feel like their games kind of vary all over for me. I feel like you're definitely less warm on these games than I am, but I'm also kind of all over the place with these games. Some of them I feel like tap into what I like about npckc more with the kind of like social boundaries and stuff like that, and others don't. Want to talk about Marron's Day? That's I guess, arguably the second biggest game they've ever made.
Yeah, sure, let's go for it. I feel like Marin's Day is the gamiest game that I've played, at least from this collection. It's also a game that you can play on a game console instead of a PC, because this is a Game Boy style game, an original Game Boy style game that you can play on a Game Boy if you want. I didn't, but you could if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Uh,
I totally did. I got a Game Boy, $300 one. Got a bunch of AA batteries. No, I didn't.
the Game Boys cost $300.
I feel like now they do.
Jeez,
I didn't look at the prices, but it can't be good, right? Not in this economy.
I don't know. I just remember I got my Game Boys from a thrift store for like $5. So
Okay. I mean,
maybe I should look into that.
we're talking about the original Game Boy here, like the black and green texture, not Game Boy Advances, which I'm assuming are a lot cheaper. But yeah, this was made in GB Studio, I'm pretty sure, which is an online engine you can make drag and drop where you can actually output legitimate Game Boy games. So that's cool. Marron's Day is a game where, get this is an amazing premise. You saw that amazing premise with the Year of Springs, right? How's this for an amazing premise? What if you are a really annoying person? That's the premise of the game. Basically, you live in an animal festival. You live in an animal town, and they have an annual animal festival, but they're not having it this year because too few people are attending. But you really want to have one, and you're also Marron. So the mayor is like, if you can get 6 people to sign off on a festival, then I'll be able to get a bunch of people in on the festival, and you can have the festival that you want. So it's a game where you are the only character who wants this festival, and every other character doesn't want it, like by default. Like Haru in the second game, they don't really want to go to the spa or do something that you think would help them. And it's up to your decision to pester them in a way and kind of get them to do something that eventually they think is good for them. There's not really a bad ending in this game. It doesn't break it down into choices here. In this game, you either stop playing or you get to the festival at the end. So there's not really like much of a choice there. But I also think it's interesting how that theme of pestering other people or like crossing over social interactions makes its way into this game. Kind of works. I think the main reason it works is because Marron's personality is kind of treated as a kid. Is it a she? Is Marron a she? I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't think it's stated. We'll just go with they.
Okay. Marron, they're kind of treated as a kid who's like, I don't know if they actually are a kid, but they're running around like everyone kind of finds them adorable or likable in a way that they're willing to go along with their whims. And it's only after they help everybody out with everything that they're willing to join the festival. That's the kind of sense that I got. I don't know if that's the kind of sense you got, but I feel like the likability that Marron has to other villagers is what allows them to get the foot in the door in the first place. And that likability comes with being like a kid that kind of frolics around the town and does stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I do want to mention the sort of game genre this is in. It's a top-down kind of adventure RPG-ish kind of looking thing. Basically, imagine Pokemon Red, except you're just wandering around a town and talking to people and getting items and everything. So yeah, in this game, you're basically trying to meet all these different villagers and convince them to go to the festival. And they all have their own specific thing that they're interested in, where they can put a stand at the festival and sort of show everyone the things that they're interested in. So we have a few characters that are interested in cooking. It's like, oh, hey, I can help find you some ingredients and find what you might want to cook for this. Or there'll be a character who really likes rocks and you're going to show off all these rocks. Or there's a character that wants to sort of spread what they've learned and what they've done through life as a sort of self-help kind of thing. And it's like, okay, you're going to find this character and kind of learn what they sort of learned, and they're going to have a stand over there themselves. And you have to do this for basically all the villagers, I'm pretty sure. um, basically going around doing these little mini games or little fetch quests while sort of talking with them and seeing what their deal is. And then at the end, you all get to go to the stands and festivals and sort of celebrate together. But what I think is interesting in this game is that if you get everyone to have a stand at the festival, then eventually, um, all the people in the village are working the festival, and you're the only one who is actually like attending it from the village. There are other outsiders that come in, but you're the only villager that gets to attend.
True. You're so fucking selfish, Marron. Why didn't you set up a booth for other people? You just want to take and consume and consume. You freak.
It's so funny to me. I'm just imagining like everyone else entertain me.
They do point out at the end, though, that like without you, this whole festival wouldn't have happened in the first place, which I think is interesting. It's like because Marron wants to have fun. That's the thing. That they say that at the very beginning of the game. They want to go to the festival to have fun, so they want to be a consumer. They never lied about that. They're not like, I want to go to the festival. I want to have a festival so I can have a booth. They never say that. So after convincing the entire town and helping everybody out and like making all of their days better, their reward is they actually get to be a consumer and consume everything. Well, not consume everything. They get to consume like 3 things technically from the booth. It's interesting that that's the reward. The reward is that you get to go to the festival. I don't know. I thought this was a very nice game. It probably doesn't have as much to look into as A Year of Springs. It doesn't take itself as seriously as A Year of Springs. But I don't know. I thought it was a very fun. I would say this is a cozy game. It's one long cozy game. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say I have a personal vendetta about this game because I'm very anti-festival. I hate those things. I go to a fair, I'm like, cost $30 for a corn dog or something. I'm not going to do that. So I avoid the festival at all costs, and I'm not going to stand for this pro festival kind of propaganda. I hate it.
Yep. This is actually a good place to bring something else up. Another thing. I feel like there are a lot of little rituals or like gifts and little kindnesses that show up in npckc's games. There's another game called Little Boats of Farewell where you go to another kind of festival in a way. You're a ghost, I think. You're a ghost going to a farewell festival that takes place on New Year's Eve, I think. And you're supposed to go over, everybody sets free these little paper boats down a river, and you're supposed to personally type something that you wish to let go of going into the next year, and then release that paper boat down the stream. And it's not you doing that makes it special. It's the fact that everybody else is also doing that makes it special. And you get to hear what other people are releasing and what they're planning about, thinking about, or what they're excited for next year. So it's like the communal gathering and talking to each other of things makes it worth it, even if the action by itself is kind of strange, I guess. This kind of thing pops up throughout other things too. There's a game called Snack Machine Change where they basically npckc basically makes an entire game of empathy out of choosing to give people food from vending machines with the money that you have. Very strange. And there's also a bunch of other stuff like A Tavern for Tea, which is a take on the Valhalla bartender game, but good. It's actually good this time, where you are a bartender and you are helping other people connect together in your tea tavern by brewing them drinks. It's very strange, yeah. But I like that these spaces, they keep showing up, and it's about like, I don't know, helping other people. It gives people a space to cross boundaries and to talk to each other about more uncomfortable things and kind of like help each other out with that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's an extension of crossing social boundaries between individuals that we saw in the Year of Springs. And I don't know if you're taking in any of this or you're just like, whatever, stop talking.
I'm here, so okay. I didn't leave.
Any games jump out to you?
If you haven't noticed, npkc has a lot of games. They've made over 50 games, and they've been making games for a very long time, so there's a lot of variety here, but it's still a lot of sort of common themes, as you can see. One of my favorites is Muse Under the Truck, which is not a fiction game at all. It's a game essay, kind of like Getting Over It, where it's sort of commenting on video games as you're playing the game, and it's giving a sort of nonfiction interpretation of how games culture has changed. It's about that point in Pokemon where there's an urban legend that there's this inaccessible truck that secretly has Mew, one of the rarest Pokemon in that game. And you can't usually access it, but nevertheless, there is still a lot of mystique and wonder about what could be happening, that this is something that you could possibly get to, but you don't know about. And the game is largely about how that has kind of disappeared with the popularity of the internet, and people don't really have those urban legends nearly as much anymore. And if there is an urban legend, people will pretty quickly either data mine it and figure out that it's not true, or it is true sometimes, and that'll happen within the span of like a month at most, or it'll like the urban legend is a creepypasta and it becomes its own genre, and that's a whole completely different thing. So the sort of gaming urban legend has kind of disappeared, and in this game in this game they sort of reminisce about that and sort of talk about how sad they are that that's kind of disappeared, even with sort of getting walkthroughs and everything being helpful for people, that they still kind of miss that sort of stuff. And I thought that was like a really sweet kind of nonfiction kind of thing, because I like game essays and I'll see them very often.
Yeah, there are definitely going to be more of those if you keep doing itch creators, because there are a lot of game essays out there. Yeah.
Right.
I think, sorry to hand fist it back into my point, but I do like how they talk about how the space for secrets creates discussion, basically. And it creates that game culture where people are speculating about it. Even if there wasn't ever actually like a conclusion, there was like talk about it that brought people together. But now that the mystique is gone, nobody ever comes together in the first place. So I like how it's talking about the utility of secrets and how the utility of mystery kind of led to communities developing. What else do you have?
Okay, so my Grumpy Hyena. This is a very simple game that I found joy in for some reason. It's a dress-up game, right? Where you sort of choose the clothing for your character. You can like sort of give the background, do their makeup and their looks and hair and stuff, except it's a hyena instead of a person. So you dress up this hyena, you can change their spots, you can change their hair, you can give them goofy little outfits. And I don't know. I just really like the idea of having a dress up game, except it's not with normal fashion. It's with an animal that you really shouldn't be getting near and dressing up.
That's good. Yeah.
Because I don't know. It's like it is creating a new type of fashion that should not exist. And I find a lot of joy in that for some reason.
That's good. Yeah. I should play that. You've convinced me.
I want to mention npckc's art style. It's very soft. There's a lot of round edges and very kind of, I want to say, fluffy and simple and very straightforward digital coloring. It gives it a very friendly look to it. And with my Grumpy Hyena especially, it's like sort of giving the idea of these outfits instead of actually having like a lot of detail and everything. And I think that really adds to it. It's more like playing around with a dress up game than actually trying to make a good look. Because I know a lot of people that will really spend a lot of time on their um, Infinity Nickies or their style savvies, and I respect that, but I can't engage with those games in the same way. So this is a dress up game for me where I could just have really simple, very different outfits that I can make something goofy with on something that I don't really care if it looks good or not. So this is a game for me.
And you don't have to compare it with real life fashion because there are no grumpy hyenas in real life that you can dress up and compare those to.
Exactly. I feel really bad when I have my hyena and I compare it to all the hyena supermodels. It's like, oh man, I'll never be able to get on that Victoria's Secret runway as a hyena.
We really have a body positivity issue with the hyena market. Those poor hyenas.
I'm really glad this is being addressed. You see, npckc is really an issue game.
This is their most serious game. My Grumpy Hyena. Why do you think they're so grumpy?
Challenging body standard.
I thought this one, okay, here's another one that I think is interesting, even though might be my least favorite game out of their entire career. The Gane Breaker, or is it the Game Breaker? I don't know. Now, you've heard of npckc's breakout game, A Year of Springs. What about their breakout game? As in, it's literally just Breakout. This is a game they haven't finished developing yet, but they're working on it. It's the Atari game Breakout, basically. You have a paddle and a ball, and you're breaking bricks. But the plot is that you're breaking people's barriers to help them basically reach their inner truth, I think. The plot is only like vaguely described to you, and it's not done yet. But it's a game where you're supposed to break past people's boundaries to get them to reveal things about themselves.
Yeah, so this is a proof of concept game that they made for a game jam. So I'm going to give them like a lot of slack for it. It's also kind of an experiment to make a action kind of game in RenP, which is a visual novel engine where you can do other stuff with it. People basically just make visual novels. So I also do not like this game, but I also feel like it's not really a game that is sort of meant to be liked, I guess. more of an experiment. But
Sure, but
yeah, continue your
it
rant.
isn't it interesting that like they've spent they spent a lot of their career making games about like breaking past people's boundaries, and then they have a game where they're now just like explicitly associating it with violence, where you have to like destroy people's barriers. I feel like that's weird, right? Isn't it? Isn't it strange? I think that's interesting. It gets into like
That is
conflicting
true. I didn't really
feelings.
think about the narrative very much because I spent a lot of time on the breakout sections that took a very long. The ball is so slow in this game, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, let's wait for it to come over here.
Yes, it's not good, but it's I don't know. I just thought that was very interesting the way they keep putting that theme in all their games. That's what I like about tourism, I guess. Should also mention the other thing I forgot to mention the other time when we were doing the Christine Love episode. My other favorite implementation of RenP that you absolutely should not use a RenP for is when Christine Love did a game called Fire of Love, I think, which they implemented a full-on turn-based RPG system in RenP, which you should not
Oh,
do.
right.
It clearly took so much work, even though it was so janky, that they forgot to write the rest of the plot of the game. So it's just like the most mid plot of all time with a jank turn-based RPG system. Very weird game.
Yeah.
Don't play it, but
I've seen
I
people
played it
make
for that episode.
mini games in RenP, and they're never good. I don't think I've ever played an enjoyable mini game. Do you have more to say about Magade Breaker?
No, that's it. I just wanted to bring that up. I think it's interesting that they even in the breakout game, you managed to slip in the idea of social boundaries. What else? Anything else interesting to you? Oh shit! Oh god, I got a nosebleed. I'm sorry.
Oh shit,
I've been
yeah.
having these for a while now. Sorry.
Focus on yourself. We'll get back to it. Now that Galvin is getting a nosebleed, now's a great time to talk about Tomato Clinic.
Okay, I'm back.
Cool. So, after your nosebleed, do you want to talk about Tomato Clinic?
Why you gotta put that in the recording? You gonna put that in the recording now? You dick?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that whole time of you getting your nosebleed and fixing it, and I'm gonna leave that in.
Okay, well, speaking of losing blood, let's talk about Tomato Clinic. Okay, so Tomato Clinic. Perfect segue. Tomato Clinic is a game that's not about tomatoes. I was baited into it the first time I played it, which was a year ago. I think this was the first npckc game I played. But it's a game where you go into a world where vampires exist, but they're nice and they don't want to hurt people. At least most of them don't, as far as you can tell. So you go into a blood donation clinic, and it's for vampires. So it's to feed vampires, and vampires and humans have joined a coalition. They've united together and are generally friendly with each other. And this is a friendly way to donate blood. So in a way, it's about learning about the culture of vampires and how vampires live as you basically donate blood in a peaceful way. So this falls into the wholesome thing of like taking a horror genre and like taking a horror trope and then like making it nice without any of the edges and stuff like that. Or imagining a kinder world, I guess. It ties into that kind of bathhouse thing with One Night Hot Springs. But I think this is just a really good game about how to talk to groups in a way where you want to learn more about them, but without being offensive, I guess. That's the main thing I took away from it. What did you take away from it?
Interesting. I hate this game.
You hate this game? Oh wow.
I hate this game.
You sent me up to say nice things about it before slam dunking it into oblivion. Okay. What don't you like about it?
So I generally really like npckc style for a lot of the games that they've been making when they're talking about real minorities. But when I find it with vampires, and I just find it really frustrating.
Yeah.
So this is a game about like sort of breaking down stereotypes and showing people that they're not true. They're a lot of things that people say about them are just like media fabrications. On an allegorical level, it works very well for a lot of different marginalized people. But for vampires specifically, when I hear a vampire tell me, oh no, you don't know a lot about vampires, let me correct you and tell you how we really do things. Like, no, I vampires aren't real. Fuck off. You can't tell me that I'm being bigoted against vampires. You're not real. You don't mean anything to me. I don't care. You tell me, oh, you get all this blood ethically. It's all donated. It's like, no, I don't care. You're taking blood from people. You're a vampire. You're evil. I don't like it. I don't like allegories for like fantasy racism and anything. I don't like Detroit Become Humans robot racism. I don't like anyone else's like Bride's fantasy orc racism. I don't I'm not going to deal with vampire racism. I hate it. I don't want to be condescended to by a bunch of vampires. Fuck them.
I just checked our RSS feed. I think we lost all our listeners in Transylvania. So
Oh,
thanks for
fuck.
that.
Terrible.
No, yeah, I get that. Honestly, I didn't really see that before now, but yeah, that's my fault. I mean, I've seen similar criticisms with, I think it's Ogres in Coffee Talk, which is a similarly cozy game about oppression, but then it's ogres. And they talk about how like ogres are like inferior in that game, like biologically. So it's like really horrible stuff, basically. I haven't played it, but that's what I've heard. Not planning on playing it, by the way. But
yeah. I think this allegory works better than a lot of other ones, but at the same time, I just really, I don't like it. It's like, you're telling me I'm wrong for thinking that vampires drink people's blood. Why are you telling me that I'm
in
wrong
this
for thinking
universe,
that?
you can pretend it's in this universe, okay? It's not every universe that has a vampire in it. You could pretend, right? Okay, whatever.
No, I can't. I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah. But I think this works. I think the main reason this works is because it's more about setting up the space for it. It's more about the clinic than it is about vampires specifically. It's about establishing that space where you can talk to other people within that space and learn more about them. And it's more about like what we need to do to make things like that happen instead of actual vampire stuff, which would be bad. Yeah, if it focused more on that. Yeah. Didn't replay that one for this one. There are also some strange puzzle games, that we didn't really mention, but there are puzzle games they did within Ren'Py that keep showing up, specifically to do with time loops, which I think is interesting. A Tavern for Tea, which is the game I mentioned before, is a game where you make different types of tea to try and get people to talk to each other while you manage a tavern in a tea shop. But the thing is, if you mess up that combination, then you have to restart it over from the beginning. So it's interesting that it's in some ways a strange detective game where you figure out what to do next by making different combinations of tea and figuring out what people like and what they don't like, and then restarting the time to go over it again. So it's like you're figuring out what these two people in this very short story like, and I don't know, managing that. There's also another one called Mima and Nina's Chocolate Workshop, which is kind of the same thing, but with making chocolates and giving them to people who may or may not be your crushes. It's up to you whether you want it to be like a romantic thing or not, which ties back into the aromantic, asexual representation thing. And there's also a Pet Shop After Dark, which is, did you play this one? This one's interesting because it's their only horror game.
I did not.
Okay. A Pet Shop After Dark is a game where okay, spoilers, because I think this is a game that can be spoiled. It's a game where you play a character who is supposed to manage a pet shop for one night and return it back to the owner after that. All they have to do is feed all the plants and then feed all the pets, and that's it. And then you do that, and then you get back, and they're like, nothing went wrong, and the character's like, yep, nothing went wrong. And they leave, and then the pet shop owner turns to the camera and says, what did you think would happen? And then the game crashes. And that's the entire game, unless you decide to play it again, in which you find out that there are other things going on in this pet shop, and there are things that are happening, let's just say, outside the game in a strange way. This was, I can only assume, during the wake of Doki Doki Literature Club and Undertale, games that were like breaking the fourth wall and talking to you for the game's files and stuff like that. It quickly becomes a game where you have to manage the game's files in order to keep progressing through the game, where things appear subliminally in the pet shop through the game's files, and you constantly have to alt-tab between the game and its files to figure out things. But I thought this was interesting because it's also about a time loop. Again, there are these 3 games with time loops, and part of me feels like it's interesting because a lot of their other games are about social mistakes. So I can't help but feel like the time loop thing is about like wanting to redo bad social situations and like wanting to make up for your mistakes. It's the same thing with the multiple endings in A Year of Springs, where you can like, if you mess up a conversation, you can go back and try the other option and see what would have happened and see all the worse endings or all the better endings. I feel like that anxiety for social interaction and like not messing up social interactions with other people manifests itself in these time loop puzzles, which I think is interesting. And A Pet Shop After Dark is, I have no idea how that one ties into the theme, if anything. I think it's just an interesting horror puzzle game. That one is just, I think, on its own.
Interesting. If I'm understanding this game right, it's kind of like it's a wholesome game if you play it the one time, and then it becomes a horror game if you like dig deeper into it and try to understand it better. Is
Well,
that
kind
right?
of. Well, the thing is, it kind of ends as a wholesome game, but except at the very end, because after the main character leaves, you just stay there, and then the pet shop owner turns to you and goes, "What did you think would happen? Something would go wrong," and then the whole screen, it basically jump scares you. It turns red and the game crashes. So it's like telling you, "Hey, there's something wrong." So it almost ends as a wholesome game, but then it lets you know a little bit longer, "Hey, this is not a wholesome game."
I mean, the way that you're presenting it to me kind of sounds like it's set up like a joke. Like, oh, you thought something bad was going to happen, and then like the game is over, and then that's it.
No, but I mean, they're saying that because something deeper is going to happen. I don't know.
Okay.
They're making fun of you for playing the game normally, basically. They're saying, "Oh, what did you think would happen if you played the game normally?" But they're trying to tell you not to play the game normally.
I like my interpretation better of this game I never played.
True. You're just supposed to put it down after the first time. This game costs $3, by the way. Your playthrough would take it like 3 minutes to play.
It would have been a good time. $1 of joy for each minute.
Actually, you want to talk about that? The paid, why we should pay for short games thing? That's another thing they're talking about.
Yeah, sure. It's a zine, but not a
Yeah.
game, so it doesn't deserve to be on this podcast. But I
Yeah.
guess I will talk about this little paper that I'm trying to find because I don't remember it specifically.
You could remember the thesis. It's pretty simple. I don't know if you need to look
That
at the paper.
you should pay for small games because the developers get money, and that's a good thing. I'm stalling as I open my itch.io page. Where is this?
Unprofessional.
And as I download the zine, that is 6.6 megabytes, in case you were wondering.
It. You fuck up. You're so bad
I
at
don't
podcasting.
organize my downloads folder. That's why I'm terrible. Okay. And as I open this file up, because I downloaded the non-digital file, I shall tell you that they argue that npckc makes free games, and they make games that aren't free because it helps them get money and they support the creator, and that's good. And without supporting these free games, then you're going to lose them because people need money to live as developers, and that's why you should pay for free games.
Yeah. I mean, okay, first off, A+ on that report. You totally had everything prepared.
I'm really proud of myself there.
That's all staying in the episode.
Worth it.
But yeah, no, this is interesting to me because there are a lot of free games on itch. It's pretty much how everybody communicates through free games. You basically, I mean, there's not to say that there's a model, but the convention is usually that people get popular through free games, and then over time they eventually go to paid releases. But what npckc is saying here is something very different, in that there are a lot of free games they claim that they would pay money for if they saw it. And I believe them, to be clear. They probably would. But it's like, by underlying arguments, I don't think that this is what they're explicitly arguing, but this is something that you should consider as part of their argument, is that itch.io basically encourages people to make free games, and that kind of encourages artists to undervalue their work in a way, in that they're making these short games, but because they're short, they have to be free, or because they're free, they have to be short. And it's like, by putting these out, they're like undervaluing their work, where if people like npckc, if enough people like npckc start charging for their short work, it'll become more conventional to charge money for your short work, and hopefully more artists can make more money that way. So it's tying back into like, how do you act as a community, basically, to help support artists? And what do you think is, what do you think is right for itch.io and or yourself, basically? And how do you value yourself as an artist? I don't have a very definitive answer on this. I think people should charge whatever they feel like for their games, but I do definitely agree that itch.io pressures some people into charging money for the games that is less than they probably would charge if there was more respect for people within the games industry, especially the indie games industry and the solo dev industry. So yeah, I totally agree with them. They're right.
Yeah, I concur. That is exactly what I was going to say before you interrupted me. So I'm glad that you said that for me.
Yeah, it was really worth the 6 minutes you spent opening that fucking PDF to give me the ChatGPT AI summary of that fucking PDF.
Whoa. That was human-made bullshitting, okay? Don't you dare tell me that me lazily reading off the paper
easily
is
opened
AI.
You could have easily opened ChatGPT and been like, hey, summarize this for me. Summarize why we should pay for free games.
That would have taken a whole extra minute, okay? ChatGPT is inefficient. Do you know how much work it is to open up a new tab and to add a file to it? This is my argument against AI, by the way.
Flawless.
It's just too much work.
They will not divide us. I don't have anything else to say. I guess, do you want to move on to recommendations? I don't know.
Okay, recommendations. Here we go. So, number one, I want to recommend A Year of Springs. I think that's pretty uncontroversial. It's a really great game. It's what they're most known for. It's probably one of their most ambitious ones because it's 3 games in one. Really good, especially for a lot of like newly queer people that really want to sort of understand identities, or for someone who just doesn't really know a lot about it, because it really does explain a lot of the issues for a lot of trans and ace people. And I think it's worth going into that if you're inexperienced. I also want to recommend Muse Under the Truck because I just really like game essays, and because it's short and just really good. And also My Grumpy Hyena because it's a hyena dress up game, and that's great. And I don't need any deeper justification than that.
Okay, good recommendations. I would also like to first off recommend A Year of Springs. That would be the one I would play if you were only going to play one of them. Yeah, basically everything you said. I already gave so many of my thoughts about all the games. Let's just move on.
Well, I wasn't listening, so I don't really know what they are.
Oh, okay, let me repeat them for you. Let's add another hour onto the log for this one.
That's okay with me.
I would also like to recommend Marron's Day. I thought it was a very comfy, just like a fun romp. It took me about 1 to 2 hours to play. Good. I also want to shout out Moonlight Jammers, I think is their name. Moonlight Jammers is basically a separate itch.io account that npckc is a part of. They do Ludum Dares every year, which is a yearly game jam competition where you have, I think, 48 or 72 hours to make a game. And they are working in a team of 5 with, I don't remember everybody else's names, but Nan Nani is another especially prolific itch artist that's also in that team. And npckc does music or not music. They do art and story, I think, for some of the games. I want to personally recommend Pack to the Gills, which is honestly one of the most charming games I've ever played on itch. Seriously. And also Greenfinger, which is a rhythm game that looks very cute, and then you open it up and it's extremely difficult. I love that. Other games, if you're generally interested, I would say a Pet Shop After Dark if you found that concept was interesting. I like Snack Machine Change. That has some very interesting characterization in it. And Two Girls Make a Game, because that's an interesting like self-reflection on making video games that crosses over with the social boundaries thing. But yeah, I think that's it. In general, go play npckc's games. They're great. Pay for their games. Support artists. I don't know. Just have a good time. And you better believe this is only just one of the first itch people were covering, because I bought a shitload of itch games, and I'm not gonna shut up about it until we're done with them. All right. But speaking of other games, we're done with npckc, which I recommended, which means that it's your turn to recommend something for me offer. And that's what we're going to be doing for the next episode. So what do you have for us?
Yeah, so I was really inspired by your idea to like talk about some smaller artists, because we've been talking a lot of big names recently, and I thought it'd be really valuable to help out someone who's kind of been down on their luck lately. They used to be in the games industry for a while. They made some pretty big games, but they kind of like fell out of it. They've been working with a lot of other projects recently, but they haven't been doing too well. They've been losing lots of money. So I just really want to sort of support this artist by the name of Steven Spielberg. He was in the games industry for a good while and made some really interesting games, but now his movies just aren't making very much money. They're actively losing money, and I feel really bad for him. And I just really want to bring up that small independent artist Steven Spielberg for our next episode.
God, Steven Spielberg. I haven't heard that name in such a long time. I thought they would be like broke on the street for that by now. The poor bastard, he's probably starving. He doesn't have an apartment to live in.
Yeah, like West Side Story, it wasn't doing so great, and then he was nominated for Best Director, and he didn't get it. And so it's really too bad. I really fear that he's not going to be able to go back to the games industry in a while, so I just really want to bring him back up.
You couldn't even get a job as an NYU professor. It's fucked up. You couldn't do game design professing at NYU with Bennett Foddy.
Yeah, well, you know, Steven Spielberg, he had to start making art without going to college, and it's really too bad that he never got a degree. I mean, he had to do a lot of hard work to get a degree in film studies, so you know, it's a real underdog story for Steven Spielberg.
Damn.
Okay, but for serious, I think Steven Spielberg is like a really interesting person in the games industry because he's really famous for movies, but he's also a big gamer. He's been interested in games since he was working on Jaws and playing Pong, and he made his own studio for DreamWorks Interactive, and is like, okay, I'm gonna be making these games. He's like been really he's been in the industry and made some like games that were fairly popular, but people don't really care. Like this is what a lot of people were really hoping for in like the 2000s, early 2010s, where people were looking for video game legitimacy from the movie industry. And Steven Spielberg just made some silly little games, and it's like not what people wanted from him. And I kind of want to talk about that.
Okay, so the two I know are Medal of Honor, the original one, and then Boom Blocks, right? Are there any other ones?
Yeah, that's basically it. He had some other projects, and he was like pretty deeply involved with some other games. I recently played Steven Spielberg's Director's Chair, and it's
Oh, right.
it's a very interesting game that I want to talk about.
Okay, I gotta put that on the list.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I need an outlet to talk about this weird game that Steven Spielberg helped to make with just his name on it. But yeah, looking forward to that on the next episode.
Wow. Are we just the greatest underdogs, the greatest champions of the oppressed and the lowly?
Yeah, did I get you? I couldn't see your face very well while I was doing that because I was trying really hard to have a straight face.
Yeah, you totally got me, man. You totally got me.
Yeah! Okay, anything else you want to say?
Nope, I think that's it.
Okay, now, as always, I'm Author Function, and you're not.
That's true. You got it. All right, thanks for listening.